Van slumped into her chair, staring at the blank email draft on her laptop. The cursor blinked mockingly at her as she sighed, fingers hovering uncertainty over the keyboard. Dear Taehyung, she began, hesitating before continuing. I know this will sound crazy, but I think I might have fallen for you. She shook her head, too direct, she thought. Why did she even start this? Taehyung was her academic rival, the one person who constantly pushed her to do better, to be better. But somewhere along the line, the competition had shifted, her resentment had evolved into admiration, and now, much to her dismay, it had grown into something more. Van let out a frustrated groan and closed the laptop, leaving the draft saved but unsent. Day 10. Over the next few days, she found herself thinking of Taehyung more often. Every time she spotted him in the library, buried in his books, and his brow furrowed in concentration, her heart skipped a beat. She was careful not to let her feelings show, maintaining the cool, indifferent facade that had always defined their interactions. But every night she found herself returning to that email. She'd open the draft, add a few more lines, then leave them unsent. The cycle repeated endlessly. Dear Taehyung, she wrote one night, I hate how much you get under my skin, but I also love the way your eyes light up when you talk about something you're passionate about. I wish I could tell you how I feel, but I can't. She stared at the words, then closed the laptop without sending. There was no way she could send this. Taehyung would laugh in her face and she'd be humiliated. Day 25. Wan was growing frustrated with herself. She couldn't concentrate on her studies. All she could think about was Taehyung. The worst part was that she still couldn't bring herself to send the email. It wasn't that she was afraid of rejection, or at least that's what she told herself. It was more the fear of losing the dynamic they had, the rivalry, the unspoken bond of competition. It is what defined them. But then there was moments when she wondered what if he feels the same. Her fingers hovered over the send button just for a moment before she shook her head and closed the laptop. Not today. Day 35. It was a particularly stressful day. Ryan had just received the result for a major exam, and while her score was impressive, Taehyung's was still higher. She knew it wasn't a competition in the traditional sense, but she couldn't help feeling a pang of frustration. That night, the email draft became more of a venting space than a confession. Dear Taehyung, she typed furiously. Why do you always have to be better? Why can't I ever beat you? And why does it bother me so much when you don't even care? She paused, taking a deep breath before continuing. Maybe it's because deep down I don't want to beat you. Maybe I just want to be by your side. She simply saved it and went back to bed, exhausted and emotionally drained. Day 42. Ryan had been up late, working on a project that was due the next day. She was exhausted, her vision blurry from staring at the screen for so long. She decided to take a break and, out of habit, opened her draft folder. There were 42 drafts in total, each one a slightly different version of the same unsent confession. She read through a few of them, feeling a mix of embarrassment and longing. What was she doing? These were never meant to be seen by anyone, let alone Taehyung. In her sleepy haze, she didn't notice her finger hovering over the mouse. She clicked, intending to close the window, but instead she accidentally hit send. She froze, staring at the screen in horror. One by one, all 42 drafts vanished from her folder, sent directly to Taehyung's inbox. She gasped, frantically trying to undo the action, but it was too late. They were gone, and her heart pounded in her chest. She tried to think of a way to recall the emails, but her panic only made her more frantic. After several failed attempts, she slumped back in her chair, defeated. Maybe he wouldn't see them, she tried to reassure herself. Maybe they'd get lost in his inbox, or maybe he'd just delete them without reading. But deep down, she knew that was wishful thinking. With a heavy heart, Vine shut down her laptop and crawled into bed, hoping she could somehow fix this in the morning. The next day, Ryan walked into the library trying to act normal. She kept her head down, avoiding Taehyung's usual spot. If she didn't see him, she could pretend nothing had happened. But as she sat down and opened her books, she felt a presence beside her. She looked up to see Taehyung standing there, his expression unreadable. Good morning, he said in a voice that was little too calm, too controlled. Morning, she replied, forcing a smile. Her heart was racing, but she tried to keep her cool. What's up? Not much, he said, sitting down across from her. His eyes never left her face, making her feel even more self conscious. Just thinking about some things. Ryan nodded, pretending to focus on her work. She could feel his gaze burning into her, but she didn't dare to look up. What if he knew? What if he had read them? Ryan, Taehyung's voice broke through her thoughts. Did you sleep well last night? She blinked, surprised by the question. Yeah, why? No reason, he said, leaning back in his chair. His gaze was intense, almost as if he was studying her. You seem a bit off today. Ryan forced another smile. I'm fine, just a little tired from all the work. Taehyung nodded slowly, a small smirk playing on his lips. You sure there isn't something else on your mind? She froze for a split second before quickly recovering. Nope, just tired. All right, he said, finally looking away. But there was something in his voice, something almost amused. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Ryan avoided Taehyung as much as possible, not trusting herself to act normal around him. But every time she caught a glimpse of him, he was already watching her, his gaze following her every move. The night, Taehyung sat in his room, the glow of his laptop illuminating his face. He opened his inbox for what must have been the 100th time that day, rereading the emails Swan had sent him. Each one was a piece of her, a glimpse into her mind, her hurt, and the more he read, the more he found himself drawn to her. The words she had written weren't just confessions of love, they were confessions of vulnerability, of fear, of hope. They were a window into the side of Ryan that she never showed, the side that wasn't his rival, but a girl who was just as lost and confused as he was. He had always admired Ryan, respected her intelligence and determination, but now, after reading her words, he felt something deeper. It wasn't just admiration, it was an obsession. He found himself hanging on to every word she had written, memorizing them, analyzing them. Dear Taehyung, one of the drafts began. I know I'm supposed to hate you, but I can't. You make me want to be better, to do better, and that scares me because I don't know if I can keep up with you. You already have, Taehyung thought, a small smile tugging at his lips. She didn't even realize it, but she had already surpassed him in so many ways. Another draft caught his attention. Dear Taehyung, what if we stopped pretending to be rivals? What if we tried to be something else, something more? He leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. Ryan had no idea what she had done, what she had revealed to him, and now that he knew, he couldn't stop thinking about her. She had bared her soul to him, and in doing so, she had unknowingly given him the power to shape their future. But instead of feeling pity or guilt, Taehyung felt something else, something more possessive. He wanted Ryan, not just as rivals, but as something much more intimate. He wanted her to be his, to belong to him in a way that no one else could. Ryan hurried down the hallway, clutching her books to her chest as if they could somehow shield her from overwhelming anxiety gnawing at her insides. She hadn't slept well, her mind spinning with thoughts of those sent emails and Taehyung's unreadable expressions from the day before. If he had read them, she wasn't sure what to expect. As she entered the classroom, she made a beeline for her seat, hoping to avoid any interaction with him. But of course, fate had different plans. Ryan, Miss Lee's voice rang out as she stood at the front of the room. her eyes scanning the students. I need you and Taehyung to go to the staff room and bring back the assignment sheets for today's class. They're on my desk. Vine felt her stomach drop. Of course, she thought bitterly. She couldn't even catch a break. She forced a smile and nodded. Sure, Miss Lee. Taehyung's presence was instantly at her side, his expression as calm and collected as ever. He didn't say anything, simply motioning for her to follow him out of the class. Vine did her best to avoid his gaze as they walked in silence down the long, empty hallway. The quiet was almost unbearable. Each step felt like it echoed, bouncing off the walls and magnifying the tension between them. Vine kept her eyes fixed ahead, praying that they'd reach the staff room quickly so she could escape this awkward situation. But just as they turned the corner, Taehyung suddenly slowed his pace, causing her to glance up at him in confusion. His expression was calm, but there was a glint in his eyes that made her heart skip a beat. So, Taehyung began, his tone light and almost playful. Did you dream about me last night? Van's steps faltered as she nearly stumbled. She stammered, completely caught off guard. Taehyung shrugged, a mischievous smile tugging at his lips. You seemed a little distracted yesterday, so I was just wondering if I might have been on your mind. He trusted to Vian's cheeks, and she quickly looked away, pretending to be fascinated by the lockers lining the hallway. No, she lied a little too quickly. I was just tired. Taehyung hummed thoughtfully, his smile widening. Are you sure? I think you've been thinking about me a lot lately. Vian's heart was pounding in her chest as she was certain that if she turned to face him, he'd see right through her. She forced herself to keep walking, hoping to end the conversation, but Taehyung wasn't done. I mean, he continued, his voice teasing. It's almost like you've got something to tell me, but you just can't find the right words. Vine stopped dead in her tracks, eyes wide, as she finally turned to face him. His expression was still playful, but there was something else there, something knowing. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, her voice trembling despite her best efforts to sound casual. Really? Taehyung said, tilting his head slightly as he observed her. Because I feel like there's been something on your mind for a while now. And if you ever wanted to share it with me, I'd be more than happy to listen. The way he said it, so casually, yet so suggestively, made Ryan's heart race even faster. She felt trapped, like he was toying with her, waiting for her to crack. I don't know what you mean, she muttered, her face burning with embarrassment. There's nothing to share. Taehyung raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. Are you sure? But before he could finish, the door to the staff room loomed ahead, offering Ryan a much needed escape. She practically sprinted the last few steps, reaching for the door handle and yanking it open with more force than necessary. We're here, she announced, her voice coming out louder than intended. She didn't look at Taehyung as she quickly stepped inside, focusing all her attention on locating the assignment sheets. She could feel Taehyung's eyes on her as she ruffled through the paper on Miss Lee's desk. The room was empty as the teachers were busy taking lessons. Ryan needed to get out of here, away from his probing questions and that knowing smile. It was too much. Finally, she found the stack of assignments and grabbed them, holding them tightly as she turned to leave. Got them, Ryan said quickly, trying to edge past him. But Taehyung didn't move. Instead, he reached out, gently grabbing her arm to stop her. The unexpected contact made her freeze.